What's up guys, Game Wisdom here and welcome back to the wise side of YouTube. If you have devoted any time to Undertale and Deltarune discussion, you probably know who W.D Gaster is, but unlike the rest of the game's lore, information on Gaster is very difficult to come across. And even when you find it, it's usually on fun wikis and YouTube videos that are either incomplete, inaccurate, or both. So I decided to make this video as a way to compile all the relevant information when it comes to Gaster. In order to make this video easier to understand, I'll divide the information into 3 categories: information in Undertale, information in Deltarune, and all the other more miscellaneous info that didn't fit into any category particularly well. There is a lot of information to go through, so let's get right into it. The first piece of information we got on Gaster came from the river person, and his line "Beware the man who speaks in hands," which implies the existence of a character that speaks in hands, and Gaster is the only person who does anything close to that. Then there are the big 4 when it comes to Gaster lore: the Gaster followers and Monster Kid Gunner. The Gaster followers give us the only concrete lore we have about Gaster. According to them, Gaster was the royal scientist before Alphys. He was brilliant at his job and even created the core, but one day his life was cut short after falling into his creation and getting "shattered across time and space." They make a few other interesting comments, like asking if Alphys will end up the same as Gaster, saying that Gaster is listening to their conversation with the player, and the last Gaster follower claims to be holding a piece of Gaster in his hand. Gunner Kid, on the other hand, doesn't reference Gaster outright and makes comments that allude to him instead, like talking about alternative timelines or his fear of being forgotten, something that seems to have happened to Gaster. But the biggest thing connecting him and Gaster is a piece of dialogue that he says after you give him an umbrella. An umbrella, but it's not raining. You know, that does make me feel a little better about this. How is this line connected to Gaster, I hear you ask? It's because this line is a reference to the song "It's Raining Somewhere Else." This song plays twice during the game. First it plays during your date with Sans, and then it plays again in Sans' secret lab. And if you know anything about Gaster, you probably also know his numerous connections to Sans, and if you don't, I'll explain them later on in the video. The other connection between Gunner Kid and Gaster is that Gunner Kid looks like a Gaster follower, as he is a monochrome version of another character. To wrap up the Gaster follower analysis, I'll explain what the fun value is. But before that, I want you to listen to the sound that Gaster follower 1 makes when he disappears, as it will be important later on. Now let's talk fun value. The fun value is a hidden number that's generated every time you begin a new playthrough of Undertale. This number can be anything from 1 to 100, and depending on your number, a series of events may occur. Here's a handy chart to help explain the fun events better. The first fun event that can occur is the wrong number song, which only happens if your fun value is between 2 and 39. This event happens in the river person's room in Snowed In, and if you have the correct fun value, you will receive a call from an unknown person asking to speak to someone whose name begins with G. There are a few characters in the game who have names that start with G, more specifically Gerson Grillby and of course yours truly. Sadly, we can't confirm who that person is, or can we? You see, not too long ago, a book about Undertale called The Legends of Localization pretty much confirmed that this is 100% Gaster. In the book, they state that when translating the wrong number song to Japanese, they had an issue, as in order to have an accurate translation, they would have to say the first 2 letters of G's name, meaning it would be revealed who it is. So Toby Fox decided to leave the wrong number song untranslated in order to keep the intended receiver's identity a secret, meaning that G is most definitely Gaster. Fun values from 40 to 50 trigger special calls with Sans and Alphys respectively, but they don't have any Gaster related info, so we are going to skip them. Fun values 56 and 57 only have a very small event where a snowman labeled Nightmare appears in the Monster Kids word search. Now we get into the good stuff. Fun values 61, 62, and 63 trigger the appearance of the Gaster followers. Fun value 65, on the other hand, triggers one of the creepiest events in all of Undertale, the sound test room. Basically, when going to the fishing rod room in Snowed In with a fun value of 65, it will be replaced with the sound test room, a black screen that allows you to listen to a few short songs, like But the most important song is the last one, Gaster's theme. A simple creepy melody that repeats itself over and over, and has been theorized to be present in just about every song that Toby Fox has ever composed, but most of these claims are probably wrong, as there is no proof of Gaster's theme in most songs of the Undertale and Deltarune soundtracks, and it just sounds like it because Gaster's theme is an extremely simple melody, meaning it's pretty easy to mishear a song and think it contains this leitmotif. There are however two songs that definitely contain Gaster's theme, those being Another Hymn and The World Revolving. But since they are both part of the Deltarune style, I'll talk about them later in the Deltarune segment. Next up in the fun value lists is Clam Girl, who appears if you have a fun value of 80 to 89. She appears in Waterfall and has some dialogue regarding her neighbor Susie. Her connection to Gaster only appears in the game's Nintendo Switch version, where when you talk to her after beating Azrael, she will say that the time you meet Susie is fast approaching before turning monochrome and disappearing with a familiar sound. Deltarune came out only a month after Undertale's Nintendo Switch version, and prominently features a character named Susie. Sadly, this is just about everything Clam Girl has to offer in regards to Gaster lore. Finally, the last fun event that occurs for every fun value that's higher than 90 is Goner Kid, who we have already talked about. Some of you may have noticed that I left one fun event unexplained, a fun event that happens to be particularly important to Gaster lore: the Mystery Man. When you exit the room in Waterfall with the crystallized cheese, while having a fun value of 66, a hallway will appear, and 10% of the time that hallway will have an eerie white door that leads to the Mystery Man, a creepy-looking black and white figure that looks distorted and when interacted with just disappears and makes that oh-so-familiar sound. This Mystery Man is the assumed appearance of W.D Gaster, and there is quite a lot of evidence backing this up. First of all, that sound effect I've been teasing the entire video. This sound effect is called SND Mystery Go, and it's actually just Gaster's theme but reversed, slowed down and cut down. Furthermore, every fun value event has some sort of connection to Gaster. We already covered the Wrong Number song's connection to Gaster extensively, so I'm not going to spend more time on it. Then there are the calls by Alphys and Sans, two characters who are very closely tied to Gaster, the sound test room that is only notable for containing Gaster's theme song, and all the other fan events are Gaster followers. That only leaves Nightmare Mode Akea, the fun event that adds that really random snowman in the word search puzzle. Said word search is the only appearance of IC in all of Undertale, a character who is much more prevalent in Deltarune, and Gaster's presence is all over Deltarune. I'll admit that last fun event basically debunks this entire theory as it has nothing to do with Gaster, but still 10 out of 11 fun events ain't bad. And lastly, Mystery Man is the single rarest fun event in the game, as the chances of the Grey Door appearing is roughly 1 in 1,000, and it would be really weird if this guy was so hard to find and wasn't actually Gaster. And with that, we finally finished analyzing the fun events. The next big piece of Gaster lore comes in the form of Room 264, also known as Room_Gaster. This room is inaccessible through normal gameplay and can only be accessed by editing the game's code. This room is a black screen that shows text written in the Wingdings font that, when translated to English, reads as follows. Whole time entry 17 is being displayed this weird sound that almost sounds like a computer error plays. It's called mus_smile, and it's actually just a really messed up version of Muffet's laugh. Does this mean Muffet is connected to Gaster somehow? Probably not, since this is the only thing connecting this two together. There are a few interesting things about this entry. First of all, if you go to the True Lab in the game, you will realize that the numbered entries there skip 17 and go to entry 18 instead. And since Gaster was the former royal scientist, it can be assumed that the True Lab was his at some point. Therefore, it can be assumed that entry 17 is the missing entry from the True Lab. It's worth mentioning that there is a separate entry 17 in the game's code written by Alphys. It's not too interesting, however, as it says the same thing that Alphys tells you in the game about monster souls not being able to handle determination. As to why there are two entry 17s, I have a theory. If you go to the game files, you will realize that all the Gaster-related stuff was added very late in development. So it's safe to assume that Toby thought of the Gaster mystery near the end of the game's development. My theory is that originally Alphys' entry 17 was going to be in the True Lab, but when Toby thought of Gaster, it was scrapped, and Gaster's version of the entry was used instead. The most interesting part of the entry, in my opinion, is the line, "What do you two think?" There have been quite a few theories on who the two people that Gaster refers to are, with the most popular one being that it's some combination of Sans, Papyrus, and Alphys, as there is no one else who makes sense. Now it's time for a lightning round of interesting Gaster trivia. Number 1, Gaster has battle stats in the game files. They were all different combinations of 6s, with the most interesting one being that defeating Gaster makes you lose money and EXP. Number 2, naming the fallen human Gaster causes the game to crash. Number 3, in the game's code, Gaster's theme is called him.ogg. With the lightning round over, it's time to analyze Gaster's various connections to Sans. The first clue people found about Gaster and Sans's connection came in the form of the skull-looking things that Sans uses to shoot lasers at you during his boss battle in the genocide route, which are called Gaster blasters in the game files. There are a few different ways to interpret this. Maybe Sans inherited them from Gaster, or alternatively they are called Gaster blasters because they were going to be used in a Gaster boss battle. He does have those aforementioned battle stats after all. Regardless of what the answer is, Sans having them means that he is connected to Gaster somehow. But this rabbit hole gets even deeper, since there's evidence that suggests that Papyrus also has Gaster blasters. Basically, if you abort the genocide route by sparing Papyrus, you can interact with a box of bones during your date with him, causing him to say that you are lucky to have stopped when you did, because this box contains his special attack that would have blasted you to smithereens had you used it. Considering Papyrus says that his special attack would have blasted you, it's pretty safe to assume he probably has Gaster blasters too. Also, this line wasn't always in the game, it was added with the patch later on, the same patch that made it possible to encounter Gaster through normal gameplay.
Wait! Right there! Coincidence? I think not!
Gaster also seems to be following the same naming philosophy as Sans and Papyrus, that being fonts. I haven't mentioned it yet, but Gaster's full name is actually W.D Gaster, probably standing for Winged Aster. His name seems to be a combination of the fonts Wingdings and Aster. The Aster font also happens to be similar to the font used for the Z's that Sans says when he sleeps. This, in combination with the mystery man kinda looking like a skeleton, has caused people to theorize that Gaster is Sans and Papyrus his father. But there is evidence to suggest that he is their grandfather instead. Basically, a few years ago, people discovered a song in the Undertale demo called Grandpa Semi. Semi most likely being an abbreviation of Semi-Sheriff, another font. Grandpa Semi also appears in some of the notes Toby posted on Twitter, confirming that he's definitely a script character. It's believed that Gaster replaced Grandpa Semi as the Shkale Labros father figure at some point, but it's not confirmed. Finally, Grandpa Semi's song is actually used in the game, it's just hard to find. In order for the song to play, you have to try feeding Temmie some Temmie flakes, but then deny causing this to happen. Now it's time for the biggest connection between Gaster and Sans, the secret laboratory. By reloading your save file 3 times after hearing Sans's judgment in a neutral or pacifist run, you can convince him you are a time traveler and obtain the key to his room. After getting into Sans's room, you can find another secret key in his drawer that allows you to enter a secret room behind his house. Inside are a few interesting things: a nondescript badge, some blueprints written in illegible symbols, a broken down machine, and finally, if you talk to Clam Girl first, a picture of 3 people you don't recognize with the words "Don't Forget" written on it. If you haven't talked to Clam Girl though, the "Don't Forget" note is replaced with a photo album of Sans and other people you don't recognize, with the game specifically remarking that Sans looks happy. Now the things found in this lab are just vague enough to be interpreted in basically any way you want. That being said, this lab definitely has the odor of W.D Gaster, like that blueprint written in unreadable symbol. I wonder what that could be about. Interestingly enough, Toby Fox has actually talked about the broken down machine in an out-deleted tweet. He said, "You've all seen the happiest outcome. Neither of them could fix the machine no matter how hard they tried. No one can." So based on Toby's words, if fix this machine could give us an ending better than the true pacifist one. What that ending could be, I don't know. Maybe Azrael gets to leave again, or maybe it can bring Gaster back, who knows. But the one thing I can confidently say about this tweet is that the 2 people who couldn't fix the machine are definitely the same 2 people Gaster talks to in entry 17. And that's about it for the secret lab. Most of the other things in there seem to actually be referencing Deltarune, like the "Don't Forget" note. Finally, in the true pacifist epilogue, it's revealed that Sans and Alphys are good friends, but no one knew about it. And when Alphys gets asked how she knows Sans, she gets really nervous before Sans changes the topic, almost as if they did something together that she isn't proud of, like, I don't know, getting Gaster shattered across time and space. Anyway, before we finish the Undertale segment of the video, there is one last thing I want to talk about: Redacted. Redacted, for those who don't know, is this weird-looking NPC that appears in the unused room 272, also known as Room Water Redacted. Sadly, doing the trick of changing the number of the room you are in, like we did for entry 17, won't work because this room gets blocked by the dog check. And trying to enter room 272 will lead you to this black screen with the annoying dog dancing in the middle while this funky song plays in the background. The dog check is basically a safeguarding mechanism to make sure you don't accidentally softlock your game by entering a room you are not supposed to. So how do we get past the dog check to enter Redacted's room? Well, we have to use a hex editor to edit the game and remove the dog check altogether. Finally, after doing all that, we can finally enter this mysterious room and find out what's inside. The room is pitch black with this creepy entity standing in the middle. Its name is not known, and interacting with it makes it say Redacted in lowercase wingdings. Exiting the room leads to the sound test that contains Gaster's theme. After listening to Gaster's theme and finishing the sound test, the game crashes. But the Redacted NPC makes one more appearance in the unused stable event. Originally, this stable was gonna appear in Napstablook Snail Farm. Sadly, most of the dialogue and code for this event has been deleted, but we can still recreate it using what is left in the code. The stable event goes something like this. It's a horse stable. Do you want to go inside? You jostle the door. It's locked. Suddenly, from inside the Redacted, you hear a. At this point, you are supposed to find a key in a trash can. The key makes Redacted appear inside the stable and say X in lowercase wingdings. People love to jump the gun and say this guy is Gaster without thinking about it, just because he speaks in wingdings, and you get teleported to the sound test when leaving his room. First of all, the way Redacted speaks wingdings is different to the way Gaster speaks them. Gaster speaks in all caps with a typer value of 666, while Redacted speaks in lowercase with a typer value of 34. And secondly, getting teleported to the sound test room is most likely unintentional, and just an error in the room transition code. Honestly, I don't get why this sprite is so popular within the Gaster community. Just the fact that Redacted's room gets blocked by the dog check should have been a red flag from the beginning. I really think this guy is just a test sprite Toby used to see how the wingdings font looks in Undertale, before making entry 17. And this is all the Gaster information we can find in Undertale. But the hunt for Gaster lore isn't over yet. No, it's far from over. There is still a lot of information to go through in Deltarune and outside of the games too. But this video is getting way too freaking long, so we are gonna explore all that info in part 2 of this Gaster info series. So if there is something that I missed or got wrong, tell me about it in the comments below, and I'll talk about it in the next video. And make sure to subscribe and hit the notification bell to know when part 2 comes out. But until then, I'm Game Wisdom. This was The Wise Side, and I'll see you next time.